Did neoliberalism invent gangs? No, that would be historically dishonest. Gangs existed in New Zealand long before the Rogernomic reforms of the 1980s.
Any idea what the top tax rate was back then?
No.
First is the party about nationalism. It's about social conservatism. It's the common sense approach, and it's about us being united in nationhood.
Hello.
Hello.
Good everybody. How are we? For those joining us, I am Sean Ackland, joined here today by Paul Barlow, Jordan Rivers, and Brie Elliott. How's our month been, guys?
Good.
Long.
Good.
Long.
It's mine and Jordan's birthday month.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
When's your
really?
birthdays? Do you mind sharing when your birthday is?
I'm 1st
Mine-
of July.
And mine's 50.
Yay.
Which
Oh,
I'm not up on my is it
Cancer. Is that what
Yeah.
you're going to star signs?
Cancer.
Yeah.
See, that's how
I knew you'd ask that because I'm Cancer.
Was it Cancer is Sagittarius?
Oh, Brie.
I
don't
know Cancer
We're
because
Can-
that's mums.
We cry a lot.
We're really emotional guys, really.
Yeah,
That's
we are.
Okay. So that does not describe my mother at all. Who is July the 4th.
Yeah, all the July people I know, yeah, not at all. They'll be watching, and yeah. All right.
Technically speaking, none of the astrological signs are actually in the same place as they were because the Earth and the universe is all kind of changed position. So what is Cancer now is probably a Sagittarius or something else 100 years ago. Just saying.
I don't know.
This is the
If it doesn't win me lotto, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Although I did win lotto yesterday, I got $44.
Hey.
I know.
Alright.
I can't do anything with it. I got it on the app. I have to spend it on more lotto tickets, but I did win lotto.
No, that's how they get them. So, word association for the past month, guys. What are we going with?
I'm going to go with desperate. I
Mm.
think my word of the month has been desperate because I've been sitting here looking particularly at the right wing and what they've been offering, and it smells of desperation. Like the whole thing with New Zealand First over the weekend, that was just ridiculous. But also, like the policy announcement, I think it was today that Paul Goldsmith put out there on we're going to change the consent laws. Good, do it. But they've had the paperwork for ages on how to do that, and they refuse to. And there's a whole bunch of back and forth there about, that Labor said that they've drafted it. There's this cross-party thing that's ready to go, and National's now politicizing it. Everything I've come across from them smells of desperation. So that's going to be my word of the month.
I would join you on that.
Yeah.
I would just say the exact same thing. It has really been, man, it was just so strange of their announcement today after what they'd already announced just like very, very soon previously. It was just so strange to come out from and have Goldsmith, a man, come out and talk about this, change that they want to make if elected, when they have cross-party support for this thing anyway, for changing to consent laws. When everyone already supports it, there was already negotiations happening, and now they want to play it off like it's their idea. And so now they're just basically holding victims of this to ransom for election votes. And then prior to this, Luxon putting out his Facebook post about how, was it stalking legal under Labor, under us it's illegal.
Oh,
It's okay, but the stalking legislation, that policy came forward through Jen Anderson, was largely pushed forward by Tamitha Paul. All the footwork, all the legwork was done by a woman before you.
Yeah.
And then for him to come out and then say that is just, and I've got all of his trolls in my comment section saying, oh, well, technically it's correct.
Yeah.
And they don't want to pay for it now, so they're campaigning on it for the future.
Yeah, the idea of using this, of all policies, as something to leverage, I think, is even more poor taste than getting Paul Goldsmith to be the person, the spokesperson for this. When Paul Goldsmith has had issues in the past of co-opting other women's work with trying to present Tamitha Paul's work as his own. And, just so we're clear, like he had a role in it, in that you could maybe make the argument that he took over from Ginny and introduced himself, which fine, great. But Tamitha, all of the mechanics of that bill, all of the kind of stuff like in terms of how police respond to stalking, in terms of more adequate, in terms of punishment that actually has teeth to it, all of that stuff was Tamitha, all of that stuff was, as you say, Jordan, women's groups that had contributed to the policy. Goldsmith introduced it, even though really Ginny introduced it.
Yeah.
But he's not even the most responsible in his own party. It was Chris Bishop, the Attorney General, that Tamitha had way more correspondence with than Paul Goldsmith. So he's even taking credit from people in his own parties. I feel it's really gross. The fact that they're getting him of all people to roll this out, doesn't sit right.
It's insanely out of touch. Like to have this twice in a week, to have men taking credit for the work of women, for legislation and policy largely predominantly aimed at protecting women. It's just like insanely out of touch.
What was also the fact that there was footage that played from Scrutiny Week last week with between Tamitha and Paul Goldsmith, where I don't know if anybody caught it, but Tamitha Paul raised concern about the move on orders to Goldie, and I've been watching too much of his interaction with Billy Jackson. If you guys aren't watching those segments on Ryan Bridge, you're missing out. Those are golden. Anyway, so basically he had an interaction with, Tamitha had an interaction with Paul Goldsmith, and she asked him why move on orders necessary when to simply house homeless people would be far more cost effective than imprisoning them. Now, of course, Goldsmith didn't answer the question. That's not surprising. But the fact that he tried to attack her with, well, don't you believe that we shouldn't even have prisons? He got her confused with Hannah Ravity Clark.
Yeah.
That was...
I found that whole thing really fascinating as well. When the police union came and going, we've got the laws that allow us to do everything in there except punish homeless people for being homeless. And Paul Goldsmith's like, yeah, we're still going to do it.
Yeah. There are so many. Desperate is a good word. I would actually say my word for the month would be. The word has positive connotations, but I mean it in a negative way, nostalgia. It feels like, especially really the right-wing parties with New Zealand First and ACT, trying to kind of give all of these old washed-up media personalities, sporting personalities, and MPs a second life with political candidacies. And Michael Laws comes to mind, Tane Randall, Stuart Nash, Paul Henry. Did I say Paul Henry?
Paul Henry, Harete Hipango.
Yeah. So it feels really, which I suppose does kind of carry on that trend of desperation of just getting these. Yeah, somebody eloquently put it in my comment section, yesterday men with yesterday ideas.
Yeah. It's the rise of grumpy old men, isn't it?
Well, we can stop that. We can put a stop to their rise as long as people vote.
Yeah.
Relegate them to the history books.
I think Bree
I remember this.
Bree probably knows more about this than I do, but I was trying to also point out in relation to their announcement today around consent laws that this is also the government that removed the education process around consent in our sexual ed in schools because they called it woke. And I'm like, okay, so you removed the education process around consent in sexual ed in schools. You walked away from the conversation around building a good consent bill, and now you want to campaign on consent. You've never been a supporter of it.
When you could pass it tomorrow,
Yeah.
they would say, oh well, it's a timing issue, we can't get it done before the election. My ass, you can't get it done before the election. When it came to kind of compromising worker safety laws, you had no problem pushing that under urgency.
No government has pushed more under urgency.
Yeah, you can't push these consent laws under urgency, which you have the votes for. You can't push the solar policy under urgency. No, you need these things to campaign on. And yeah, it's really disgusting.
An insane move to campaign on things that has cross-party support, though, isn't it? Because it's like this one, the consent one,
They did it
and
with the solar. And the Greens were like, why don't you just do it? Because we all agree.
Yeah, we'll help you.
We all dig this.
Why are we not doing it?
Nobody did that.
Yeah,
you can't pay for it.
you could finally do a good thing. The other thing that's really getting a pass in the media at the moment is just the absolute shit show with their road promises. Has anyone else been watching this? It's just
my God.
Nicola has been campaigning for these fucking Wellington tunnels for like 9 years. And then she's like, yeah, I'm a government. We're definitely going to do these. And now she's like, let's not. I don't want to talk about
Can't
it. They're not
afford
doing
it.
It's 4 lanes to the plains was her policy, not happening. It's the Mount Vic tunnel, not happening. That's like half of the roads, $56 billion worth of roads, not happening. What are we? But they're just getting a pass.
Yeah.
Well,
see, I went through the Coromandel and National Park over the last couple of weeks. Potholes everywhere, like just the road because of the weather that we've got. We know that that's what causes these potholes. But yeah, the potholes everywhere, and that was one of the things they campaigned on. You know, we're going to have an emergency pothole fund. It's like fuck off.
You know what we need? We need a campaign on a pothole hotline. All right.
Yeah,
the road cone hotline that worked. All right.
Oh,
Let's waste some money. I think that worked out for somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that it worked out to about $700 per road cone that they spent on the road cone hotline that was then discontinued. And close to like 95% of the call outs were void because they were just not worth doing anything about.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah. But they're good with
this does kind of segue nicely into a recommendation to anybody in the chat who want to get onto their Christmas shopping. Now's the time to do it because in regards to that, although they don't have a pothole hotline, they do have a red tape hotline. And apparently David Seymour got a tip from this red tape hotline. He didn't say who gave the tip. My suspicion is somebody whose name rhymes with McDobre, because it seems that a part of that tip that somebody recommended in that tip line that our toys that pass US safety checks and European safety checks do not need to pass, also need to pass New Zealand safety checks. And this Good Samaritan of liberal democracy, he made the case of if a toy has passed through American and European safety checks, why should it have to go through New Zealand safety checks at all? And by the way, guys, there are still schools right now paying exorbitant amounts of money to clean out the asbestos because of the kinetic sand they purchased, which, by the way, did pass those New Zealand safety checks. So even with the safety checks that we have in New Zealand, there's still way too lax to the point that we're getting kinetic sand with asbestos in it. And David Seymour's answer to that is to take away a requirement that already is not enough. So yeah, guys, get your Christmas shopping done now before that policy is put into place.
Right, that's a perfect segue to actually go in and do some sales pitch here to do some other things for Christmas shopping, including getting merch from the BHN store. I love the segues. I love when they get set up so easily. If you hit the bhnshop.co.nz, you can check out a whole bunch of different merchandise that they've got on there, including If the Left Vote, the Left Wins merch, some Chewy Fufu. I have talked to Ems about organising some artwork for us, and it's a maybe at the moment. We'll see how things go towards the elections. Nikki No Boats, of course, absolute classic. That might be the reason actually why We've got no National Party MPs coming to any of the BHN debates. Just they don't like
Well,
what happens.
I will say, I've said way worse things about David Seymour, and so has Chili, so has Pat. And David Seymour, for all the grief that we give him, and for all the grief no doubt we're going to give him in this episode, he's showing up.
Yeah.
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 And we're not going to go to the debates and be like, yeah, we support this specific political party. Like, we're going to go and be like casual, you know? The whole point is that they get to show themselves off.
We are.
Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
can I confirm? Is National attending any of the debates?
So
No, they don't have a single person.
They don't have a single person. National has been invited a number of times, and every time there's a change, there's like, "Well, doing this. Are you sure you don't want to be there?" And from what I've heard, it's either complete radio silence or "Yeah, thanks, but we're kind of busy that night. You know, Chris has got to wash us here. We're really super busy." So it
That
yeah,
was a low blow.
I'm
No, I
sorry.
thought that was good for.
So for
That
people who are
isn't-
wondering about the debate, I should bring that up as well. We've got two that we've announced so far. There's the big hairy health debate that's going to be in Dunedin, and Bree, you're going to be at that one.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Dunedin in like a few weeks. Woohoo. I wish I was coming for longer because I really want to go to the fire station, but later this year maybe. But I'm so excited, yeah. And I'll get to meet Pat and Chewy.
Mm.
Nice.
Yeah. So that one's with Todd Stevenson, Aisha Viral, Puhana Linden, and Casey Costello. And the moot that's been given to them to debate is we're getting better value for money for our health under this government. I'm really interested to hear how particularly Stevenson and Costello justify their point of view on this one, because I love a fairy story, and I'm pretty sure that that's what we're going to end up with.
I've
so that
never
is-
seen Stevenson talk outside of the Rainbow Parade video that they make him do every year. I don't know anything about that guy.
I know he once read a book, but it wasn't until
That's great.
after.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't until after I think Steve Brunei said to him, "Have you read any New Zealand authors?" And he goes,
Oh.
So
he was their spokesperson.
And he's the architect of the free speech bill and health services. And it was Simon Court that had to trot it out on Jack Kane because Todd Stevenson had the good luck of missing his flight today.
That's right.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think there was airport fog or something up here that stopped him from the
Yeah.
flight being able to take off.
Oh,
And then the second debate that we've got lined up here is August 15 at Arorere College here in Papatoetoe, also Auckland. And that's got David Seymour. We will have David Seymour at this, which will be really fascinating. Willie Jackson, Marama Davidson, Casey Costello, and Debbie Naruapaka. So big, full list of people coming along for that one. But as you can see, no national.
So I do want to kind of, because I know that this footage will probably get to at least a couple of national MPs. If you guys can I just want to make an appeal here. We are at our core political nerds. We are not there to, throw big swings or to kind of derail anything. So like we are genuinely there at a curiosity. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to see how you front these issues in front of a crowd that, may be one that you are not used to. And I'm sorry, guys, but I do have a little bit of admiration for New Zealand First and ACT here for fronting it in a way that you aren't. So
it is such a bad look. After so publicly, the National Party has cut down on Bridge Run, facing the media on off days. They've not doing QA. They've avoided Te Karere as much as they can. They're not doing Tova's show, the breakfast show with Tova. And then to also avoid all of these debates is like, it's just like an insane. Yeah. Surely somebody over there more experienced than Luxon, which is pretty much everybody, would have said, hey, we should probably go to this because this is a real bad look. I mean, this is basically handing votes. This is handing votes to the other parties.
I feel like it's a risk as well because if you don't show up at these kinds of events, everyone will watch your big debate right before the
Yeah.
election because they haven't
Yeah.
watched any. You know, it's kind of better to do smaller ones where you might grab a few people here. But I mean, each to their own. If you guys want to lose the election,
By the way,
whatever.
guys, and also adding on to that, Bree, it's good practice. You guys have these very consequential debates that is going to be filmed to a very to a glued in nationwide audience. It is good to get some miles in before you get into that. So I don't know what the thinking is here. It's not like this is some rinky-dink operation. We have the Deputy Prime Minister. We have party leaders such as Marama Davidson. We have names for these debates. And the fact that you guys aren't showing up as if it's beneath you, I think is,
It's like it's as good as them admitting that they know they can't defend what they've done so far. Like, man, it's a crazy bad choice. I love when they make this kind of thing and expose how shitty they are. But even
I'm
this
like,
surprising.
Is it because they think that we're gonna like roast them? But it can't be because we'll just do that on our own pages. We don't need to organize a massive debate.
that.
Well, when you look at leadership in particular for National, what they're doing in terms of media, there's next to nothing out there. Luxon famously hasn't been on Q&A for almost 2 years, but he's been on the Dom Harvey podcast. He goes on to softball interviews. He wanted to be on, was it Between Two Beers, if they were going to do a softball launch and sort of launder his image. They're really particular, but he does really poorly when he's under pressure and people are putting pressure on him. And I can see why they want to avoid putting him in front of the camera to do that. But he has to, he's the Prime Minister.
But he has to because he can't, he won't be able to hide from the debates.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go there. Like he can't be,
I'm so excited for that.
he can't enter the debates on a case-by-case basis, as he put it. Like, we're going to treat Tova O'Brien, my appearances on Tova O'Brien on a week-to-week basis. Yeah, how many times has he appeared on Tova O'Brien since?
No.
You know who fills that slot now? David Seymour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And David loved it.
The other thing I think they're missing out on, this is my background in marketing and content creation, is that if they are not at these debates, they really can't use the content from these debates in their attack ads. Because we'll just be like, well, you didn't even show up. So like if they went, they'd be able to use all of this content for their social media. I mean, they might still try because they're gutless, but I mean, it's just kind of like, you weren't there though.
I remember when Simeon Brown, he just teed me up so nicely when Chris Hipkins did his interview with Jack Taman. He was critiquing it on Facebook. And it's like, bro, when your Chris decides to show up to Q&A, you get to criticize our Chris for his performance. Until then, a nice tall glass of shut up juice might be it.
I'm so sick of the name Chris. Oh my god.
I know, and I was annoyed in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
So
Which is your favorite Chris? Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pine.
It actually used to be David. Back in the day, David, we had like 3 Davids. There was all these Davids in Labour. David Cunliffe, David Shearer. There are just certain names, certain dude names.
This is loosely related, but there's a really beautiful speech that that Willie Jackson did in the House, I think last year, about how you can kind of track the progress of Māori in our society by the names in the House. That he was saying, when I was born, there were Willie Jacksons, there was Shane Jones, there were Winston Peters, and now there are Peeni Henare's, Tama Pōtaka. There are like Māori names in the House, and he's like, you can see that generational change. It's a beautiful speech. I should put it up sometime.
I love that.
I'll do that. Yeah.
That's cool. Right. Should we jump into the first? You know what I'm going to do first before we jump into one of the videos, and you guys can decide who does the first of the 2 videos. We're going to do a quiz that Spider Hooper sent through. We'll ask. We've got 5 questions. We'll do the first one, and we'll do the answers after we watch the video, so people have plenty of time to do some investigating and leave comments in the comment section. So we'll jump into the first one of those. And before I jump onto the first question, whose documentary do you want to watch first?
Honestly, I'm just rambling, man.
Bree's making a noise. I want to see what that is about.
It's just me being like, these are all my thoughts at one time, right now, 10 minutes straight.
What we all do. What we all do.
Yeah.
That's what we all do. That's what we're doing. Literally.
Paul messaged me and said I'm probably my own harshest critic. So I'm happy to go first. It'd be good to get out of the way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do the quiz question first. And Spider Hoof has sent these through. She does some amazing stuff. Go give her a follow if you haven't done so already. So first question. How many times has Winston Peters been completely voted out of Parliament up until now? Hopefully, I would love to see it happen one more time than whatever the answer is. And we will answer this question. Sean?
So I do have one question. So voted, that's the key word, right? Voted out of Parliament, because he's been kicked out of Parliament.
He's been kicked out of the House, but voted out as opposed to, did not win the election, so was not in Parliament.
All right, then.
Because wasn't that time, and this might be a trick question. I'm going to leave it.
Not enough.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we'll get people to answer that. I've seen some answers coming through already. We got 1, 3, only once. So they've got a few people who are like, okay, they got ideas. So you've got until after Breeze Doco to give us an answer. And Simon thinks it's at 4. So plenty of options here. All right. So let me see. I've got so many tabs open here. That one there. The truth about tall poppies. Head to the stage.
That New Zealand has tall poppy syndrome. Apparently, we're a country that hates successful people. Make too much money, win too many medals, become too well known. Sooner or later, someone will try to cut you back down to size. It's become part of our national identity. Politicians talk about it.
Is that what you mean by what you just said, that there is a tall poppy syndrome in this country that continues to divide people?
Yeah, there is, and some politicians really exploit it. Chloe Swarbrick is one. If you listen to everything she says now, none of it's about the environment. Almost all of it is about some other person's got too much money, but if you vote for me, I'll take it off them.
Business leaders talk about it. Sports commentators talk about it. Ask almost any New Zealander if it's real, and chances are they'll say yes without even thinking about it. But I've started wondering if we've misunderstood what we're actually seeing. When someone successful gets criticized, are we really just jealous? Or are we asking a much more political question? Was it fair? I've spent the last week sick in bed reading everything I could on tall poppy syndrome, the psychology, the history, the sociology, and by the end of it, I was not convinced that New Zealand is a jealous country at all. I think we're something much more interesting. The phrase tall poppy itself comes from ancient Rome. The historian Livy tells the story of the tyrant Tarquin the Proud, who answered a question about ruling a conquered city by cutting the heads off the tallest poppies in his garden. The message was simple: eliminate anyone who stands above the rest. It's a powerful image, but on its face, it has absolutely nothing to do with New Zealand. So how did a 2,500-year-old Roman story become one of the defining explanations for New Zealand culture? Well, the answer isn't really about poppies. It's about the story New Zealand started telling itself in the 19th century. Many of the British settlers who came here weren't just looking for a new country. They were actively trying to leave the old one behind. Britain was deeply class-based. Your family mattered, your accent mattered, your place in society was largely decided before you were born. New Zealand promised something different. Land seemed abundant, labour was in demand, workers had bargaining power that they'd never had before, and out of that grew a simple but powerful idea. Jack is as good as his master. Whether or not it was ever completely true, it became part of our national identity. We were the country of the fair go, and that's what surprised me. Tall poppy syndrome didn't become a popular phrase until the 1980s. So what we're talking about isn't an ancient tradition. It's a modern label attached to a much older story about equality. And once I realized that, I stopped asking whether tall poppy syndrome was real. I started asking, what does the evidence actually say? Almost none of the research tries to prove that New Zealanders are generally jealous of successful people. Because how would you even measure an entire country's jealousy? Instead, researchers have looked at entrepreneurs, elite athletes, and public figures. One New Zealand study found many entrepreneurs deliberately hid their success because they feared public criticism. Elite athletes often believed tall poppy syndrome existed, but many also said that criticism simply came with elite sport. And then I came across the work of Australian psychologist Norman Feather. He spent decades studying how people respond to success. And yes, people judge successful people more harshly when they cheated. People even felt more satisfaction when a high achiever failed than when an average person failed. But then came the important finding. When people believed someone's success had genuinely been earned, the backlash almost disappeared. Maybe success isn't what people are judging. Maybe they're judging whether success feels deserved. And once I started thinking about it this way, it stopped feeling like psychology and it started to feel more like political science. Political scientists often distinguish between egalitarian values and egalitarian outcomes. Values are what a society believes. Outcomes are what a society actually produces. And those aren't always the same thing, unfortunately. New Zealanders still believe in the fair go. We like leaders who seem ordinary. We dislike people who act like they're above everyone else. No matter where you sit politically, fairness is one of the most powerful words in New Zealand politics. Over the last 40 years, wealth has become increasingly concentrated. Housing has created a growing divide between those who own assets and those who don't. Income inequality widened after the reforms of the 1980s. The country has changed, but the story that we tell ourselves hasn't. We still think of ourselves as a pretty egalitarian country. So our identity was formed under one set of social conditions while we now live under another set. And I think that's where tall poppy syndrome enters the picture. Because when a country still believes in equality, but increasingly experiences inequality, people start looking for an explanation. Maybe successful people really are being cut down because we're all jealous. Or maybe we're reacting to a growing gap between the country that we imagine ourselves to be and the country that we've actually become. Think about the conversations that we actually have. When someone is wealthy and criticized, do we usually hear, oh, they're too successful? Or do we hear, did they earn it? Did they pay tax? Did they create value or extract it? Those aren't arguments about success. They're arguments about legitimacy. And I think that's what we've been missing. We don't judge success in New Zealand. We judge how success happened, which also explains why New Zealand has no problem celebrating people like Dame Valerie Adams, Lisa Carrington, or Richie McCaw. They are some of the most admired and successful New Zealanders who have ever lived. But that's because their success feels earned. It feels legitimate. Sure, sometimes people are just being unfair and they're jealous and they've got a bit of tall poppy syndrome. But I think we've made that phrase do far more work than it was ever meant to. It's become an easy way to dismiss criticism before we've even asked what the criticism is actually about. And that's super important because one of the things that I love and admire about New Zealand is that we still expect power to explain itself, whether that power comes from politics, business, wealth, or fame. Winston Peters, David Seymour, Chloe Swarbrick, they all disagree on almost everything, yet every one of them claims to represent fairness. Why? Because fairness is how political legitimacy is earned in New Zealand. And that's why I don't think the answer is to stop questioning successful people. I think the answer is to make success easy to trust. Be transparent, tell people how you got there, what helped you, what advantages you had. Because transparency wouldn't stop criticism, but it would make trust more possible. So, my conclusion of this brain fart. Do I think New Zealand has tall poppy syndrome? Sometimes. But I do not think that is a defining feature of this country. I think the defining feature is something much older, a pure stubborn belief that power should justify itself. The Roman story was about a king eliminating anyone who stood above him. And I don't think that's what New Zealand does. We don't cut people down just because they stand above the rest. We just ask if they got there fairly. Those are not the same thing. And maybe that's why we've been confusing them for decades. I've come away from this whole thing feeling strangely optimistic because despite the crazy inequality, despite the political divisions in an election year, despite how much we argue, New Zealand still does seem to believe something very simple. Everyone deserves a fair go. We don't always live up to those ideals, but the fact that we keep arguing about them makes me think that we haven't given up on them. And I think that is one of the best things about New Zealand.
Well done. Very impressive.
I was like, oh my god, this is giving uni. Like,
It's a very good
the
essay.
sociological explanation is wealth inequality.
And in conclusion, that was good.
It was great.
was
You
great.
very much were your own worst critic.
Okay. I appreciate that, guys. I was nervous about it. But yeah, I do think like sorry, yeah, go for it.
No, it's a brilliant thing to address, and it's the best I've seen it addressed, because I've only really seen people go off about New Zealand's tall poppy syndrome, and from memory, the only people who seem to be doing it seem to be guys on podcasts who could be interpreted as being arrogant in their fields, and I do find that. But it's a brilliant point, because I'm like, no, I think we celebrate our people all the time. Instead of Peter
Yeah.
Jackson and
Yeah.
Larry Adams,
Honestly,
the Adams siblings all
we
together.
actually do.
The main
is
point
something-
because, and I didn't really talk about because I didn't want to like derail the conversation, but was like Nick Mowbray versus Valerie Adams. Like, we judge them completely differently and for valid reason, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, we judge them completely differently because Valerie Adams isn't polluting our rivers with junk plastic.
Yeah.
So, I feel like it's a pretty and like, to be honest, and it's good that you showed David Seymour there. I actually did a response to that specific clip where he talked about how Chloe Swarbrick and the left like to punish success, and we don't want to be a country that punishes success. And it's like, what if the success came from something bad?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, we've had successful bank robbers. Should we not punish them? Like,
I think it's so interesting how it comes from like that egalitarian ideology.
Mm.
Yeah, you don't see like a bank robber in handcuffs saying, "Oh, these cops just have tall poppy syndrome. You know, they can't handle it when someone gets successful. They've got to bring me down." Like, it's like a kind of, it's a way I feel to deflect criticism. And like you said, Jordan, I feel like New Zealand, we really do well to uplift each other. We are literally the country that punches above its weight. How do we how do we get to that point? By lifting each other up. So you
And
guys
it's so
have all kind of
interesting
gone
as well how they all are fighting for fairness. Like, all of the politicians are all arguing, like, I want New Zealand to be a fair, equal country. They all say that in their own way, and it just means different things completely. Like, to Greens, that means like that the wealthy need to pay their fair share, and to Labour, that means some people need more support because they start on a lower ground. But to David Seymour, that means like individualism and personal responsibility is important, and like that fairness is differently defined by everyone. And I find that so fascinating.
While we're on personal responsibility and back to kind of whether or not we should punish success, if your success happened because you created a product that contributed to an increased amount of microplastics in our drinking water, I think we should punish that. You know, if you leveraged your success to effectively buy laws that prevent you from being held legally accountable, much like Fonterra and Z Energy did, we should punish that. And I think we should punish the people who allow that to happen. Now, that is going to be something that's going to make you more successful. It is something that's going to make you more legally protected and therefore more wealthier. It's not tall poppy syndrome to expect repercussions for that. Yeah.
So is it that tall poppy syndrome is not the criticism of those who are successful, but rather the critique of those who didn't achieve success in a fair way? Is that a fair
Mm.
summary of
Yeah,
what
I
that is?
think
Yeah.
I would say New Zealand is not a jealous country. We are a country that judges success based on if you earned it or not, or if we feel like you earned it. And to us, that means like you didn't exploit people, you know.
Yeah.
In
Which
which
I
case,
think is
that
I feel like
nice.
we're a country with a strong sense of justice. And when we see somebody, you know, take shortcuts at the expense of each other, yeah, we're going to respond. We're going to dish out a little bit of scrutiny. That's how it works.
Mhm.
would it
Every
be a
time I
fair
talk, you
assessment?
guys,
Go for it.
sorry, I might be having technical issues. Are you guys? Is this just me? Oh fuck!
No, we can see you.
Yeah.
Would it be a fair
My
assessment
meter.
then? Would it be a fair assessment then to say that the right wing have sort of co-opted the idea of tall poppy syndrome as a way of excusing, I think, like the absorbent selfishness of the accumulation of wealth? I think a lot of the time, because they're just kind of seeing it. It's a way of posing successful people as just, you know, like hardworking people that have achieved this the same way as everybody else. It seems like it's a co-opted phrase. I was wondering if in your research into tall poppy syndrome, if you had found in the etymology where it began in terms of being called a syndrome, because by the looks of things, it doesn't qualify for a syndrome, does it?
It was actually in the 1980s. A woman wrote a book about where she interviewed a bunch of Australian women about their success, and that's kind of where they coined the term, because they were discussing in the book like you know, how they like respond to criticism and that kind of thing. So it was actually the 80s when it was like made a syndrome, I guess. But before that, it was referenced in, I think, like a New York Times article in the 30s.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's it. It's pretty much comes from that Roman story, like from millions of years ago, pretty much. Like, yeah, and it's just, yeah, but I find it really interesting how it sort of has traveled from the Roman times to now, and we use it as the sort of overarching excuse. And like Sean was saying, it's like, that's why you've got to be able to differentiate, is this scrutiny or is this jealousy? And I think the best way to do that is by being honest about how you came to your conclusions. And I wish they would do that more in Parliament.
That whole claiming jealousy thing is a favorite tool of theirs, right? Because that's also why they don't want people to tax the rich. It's like, you know, clearly it's just the people are just jealous of the wealthy. Whereas it's like, no, actually, what you're observing is a critique of the wealth.
We're judging
it is not a
fairness.
jealousy. Exactly.
Yes.
How much of
Thank
this comes
you.
down to the way that they present themselves? Because I've met both Valerie Adams and at least one of the Mowbrays, and they have very different personas from the two times that I met them. One was absolutely lovely. The other just had this air of complete arrogance. I'm sure people can work out which one's which. How much of that feeds into our perspectives of whether or not they're the victims of tall poppy syndrome?
Oh.
Sorry, curly question. I mean, how is your day going?
Tricky question.
It's a good question, and I think it's kind of it's how it's put out and how it's received. So I think how they present themselves is indicative of how they reach that position, and the critique of them that has been called jealous is how they got to that position. So I think there's an arrogance of reaching a certain high that isn't perceived as being deserved. There's an arrogance that comes with that we would, our critique of them is probably what is being called tall poppy syndrome.
And I think sociologically, like, they don't get that pushback from people that they interact with. You know, I always say, like, we don't socially shame people enough. Like, we need to be like, it's not cool to flaunt your wealth and like make, you know, when there's people starving and like maybe they haven't had that sort of pushback, and so that gives them that sort of arrogant attitude. Whereas people like Valerie Adams, we know she's worked hard. She is an athlete who's like, you know, so we see that maybe.
I think as well, and I feel like you just touched on it, Brie. before we started the show, guys, Jordan was sharing some really nice stories about Sam Neill, and now we're hearing kind of similar sentiments about Valerie Adams. And we do hear this with kind of notable figures in fields outside of the business sector. And it does seem like there is this real kind of community element of, as I'm uplifted, I'll make sure to lift up the people around me. And I will try and maybe pass on knowledge. I will try and kind of take people with me. I will give advice. I will be a steward of this thing that has given me so much. And we simply, I don't see a lick of that with the likes of the Mowbrays, with the likes of the Horncastles. I don't see that anywhere. In fact, I see the opposite. I see them doing everything they can to completely consolidate the space that they exist in a way that the likes of Sam Neill and Valerie Adams didn't. We have a thriving sports scene because of the likes of Valerie Adams, because of these great kind of men and women who have uplifted everybody around them, so that they can kind of keep that going, much in the same way that Sam Neill did for our film industry. There is so many great movies, great filmmakers, great actors, present company included with Jordan, who are where they are now because of the likes of Sam Neill. There is an element where the likes of Mowbray, guys, I can't say too much about this because these dudes are so litigious. All I'll say is Google Nick Mowbray, Rascal and Friends to know what I'm talking about. These guys do everything they can to completely consolidate power. They have risen up the ladder and now they're trying to pull the ladder up from underneath them. And fuck yeah, Bree, you're absolutely right. We do not socially shame people enough. I think we should shame that. I'm not jealous of you. I think you're a cunt. We might need that.
We need one of those 10-second back clickers.
If we could maybe bleep that out. I am a teacher.
This is live. I don't know if I told you guys. This is live. All right. Let's jump into answering our question from before. The one about Winston Peters. How many times has Winston Peters been completely voted out of Parliament? Do you guys want to lock in an answer?
I think it's one.
I think it's 3.
I think it's
3.
2.
Okay.
But not enough.
I need a drum roll. All right. Question 1. Winston Peters has been voted out of Parliament 3 times. 1981, 2008, and 2020.
Let's go, baby.
Yep. And
let's
I
add another.
Agree with Spiderhoof. Yep. I think 2026 is a good time to do it again.
4.
Yeah. I'm just sort of looking at that going to... Yeah. I think those are good times, generally speaking. The end of that 81 period, we ended up with David Lange and our nuclear free stance. And that term, that 81, he got kicked out. Yeah. 3 is good. All right. I'm going to set up the next question then.
Can I just jump in quickly?
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat, this chat seems to be going off. Somebody in the chat is saying that Elon Musk has created millions of jobs around the world. I know that isn't true, so I've just spent the last 5 minutes looking it up. I'm just going to quickly fact check here. Through Elon Musk directly and his companies, he directly employs or contributes to the income of 157,000 people globally. But through his efforts with Donald Trump, it actually results out to being a net loss of 256,000 jobs, or almost 378,000 net loss. So he's actually cut more jobs than he's employed.
And not only cut more jobs, hasn't he cut more lives because he cancelled USAID? And
hundreds of thousands,
Yeah, they've I've heard the number north of 1 million.
Yeah.
In terms of people who are actually going to die from that. So
it is.
Yeah.
It's abysmal. I'm not sure where this person's getting the information, but even just in the last year, it's a 45% drop in the education workforce. That's 25,000 people for the Veterans Health Administration, 19,200 people in revenue services, Yeah, no, I don't know who's commenting that in the chat there, but you are incorrect by
I
possibly
drove
about a
past
million.
I drove behind a Williams Corp car today, and it was a Tesla. I was like, of course it is.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
If they manage to get through all of their anti-regulation bullshit and cut all the red tape, I would assume that means that they'll get to a point where our regulations for car safety will be so low that New Zealand will actually be able to import those Tesla trucks. Because right now they're not allowed in New Zealand, are they? They don't actually pass New Zealand safety ratings. Yeah, Elon's trucks. They don't pass our safety ratings, so we don't have any.
Cybertruck. Ugh.
Isn't that insane? It's just an unsafe, ugly car. There's no advantage.
No.
All right. Our next question for the quiz, question 2. Who said if Nelson Mandela was alive today, he would be campaigning for?
Oh, I know this.
Party.
Yeah.
So,
this is a layup. I'll let somebody else go first.
It's all right. We'll give people a bit of time to answer this one. I'm going to ask you guys a question while people are considering the answer for this one. If we take a look at this week's news stories, there were 2 really big ones that hit. The most recent one is the conference over the weekend from New Zealand First. First of all, have you guys been following the conference news?
No.
Yeah. Not
I just don't care.
For my mental health, I've been avoiding Winston Peters news.
That
a little bit. A little bit. I have been following it a little bit. I know that he's really leaning hard on the culture war stuff, on just general cookery.
Yeah, that's kind of why I've not been watching, because I'm like, oh, what racist thing have they said this week?
Yeah.
Does anyone remember when I got in a bunch of trouble in 2023 with the right-wing parties because I posted a photo of people going to Winston Peters' conference, and I posted it with the soundtrack to The Walking Dead. And that's all I did. I didn't even make a comment.
Oh my god, they're such snowflakes. Honestly, it's so funny that they actually are so sensitive. I made a similar joke, and I got so many comments about how I was discriminating against the elderly. The joke was basically I listed all the ages of the MPs or the candidates that they're running. Found that Stuart Nash was the youngest at 59, and Michael Laws is 69, 70. Winston Peters is 81. Shane Jones is 68. I listed all their ages, and I sarcastically said that the light of New Zealand's future is looking bright. All they need to make sure to do now is not walk into it. And I got so many people just so aggrieved in the comment section. It's like, you guys are the ones who constantly talk about us about the left as if we're oversensitive and can't take a joke. And here you are just throwing your toys out of the cot. Yeah.
So I want to point out a few things for you guys here. This is all coverage that's come from the last couple of days. The same sort of coverage that Reality Check Radio, that bastion of truth and reality, is running the same lines that One News and RNZ have been running. The Herald has been gushing. Stuff has been gushing. Nobody has pushed back on any of the things that have come through in this particular conference. And they include things like candidates saying National and Labour savage National and Labour as they complete conversion. When they ran that story, there was a whole bunch of why did you do this? And a lot of the answers came down to conspiracy theories around globalists. There was a whole bunch of anti-Semitic answers because they didn't want global shadow organizations controlling the world. There was a whole bunch of racism built into that, and that's not in the story. And people have written to the reporter saying, why not? And the reporters have come back going, oh, actually, yeah, that's a good question. Why not? One of the things that Shane Jones warns of is demographic engineering. This is a white supremacist dog whistle term for bringing in migrants to vote for particular parties. And New Zealand First is really good at doing that at the moment around the India Free Trade Agreement. One of the other things that Shane Jones did is use what they call the 14 words, which is a dog whistle term that white supremacists use to basically say, we're going to make sure the country is right for our children and grandchildren in very subversive dog whistly kind of ways. None of that has been reported by New Zealand media over the weekend. And I'm kind of curious what you guys think about all of this.
I was just going to say, Paul, that was so interesting that you said that dog whistle, that kind of thing of we're doing it for our grandkids. I've noticed that when Paul Henry was speaking about joining ACT, he was like, you know, I've got a stake in New Zealand's future now with the grandkids. And it made me think, like, do grandparents think like it's on them to like I get that we're like meant to get a better world for like the future generations, but like I'd rather my mum's generation like planned the better world, not your generation.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I feel like that's something
Yeah.
that seems to be happening.
I want the people planning I want the people who are planning our future world to actually have a stake in it, because they're going to be around.
Not just have grandkids in it, like cool. That's how everyone has grandkids. Like I want, or just I feel like that's the issue, is that none of these people actually are going to have to live with any consequences, and maybe that's why the news isn't reporting it, because they're like, no one cares, because like.
Yeah, all their grandchildren. I mean, chat can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I understand that between Paul Henry and his wife, they have an asset base of around $200-300 million. Like, these are your grandchildren are going to be fine.
Yeah,
I think they'll be,
Yeah.
okay.
Can you worry about my grandchildren?
Yeah, I think they have more wealth than 3 generations of my family combined. So I think you're doing fine, Paul.
I just think that shouldn't be their winning argument, and like that shouldn't be their reason for going into politics, it seems.
It's virtue signaling, which is crazy because they hate that apparently, but it is virtue signaling.
So one of the youngest candidates that they've actually got, because this bottom left-hand picture is their candidates. The official picture they released, I should have actually got this loaded up, is terrible. Like, the lighting is terrible. They're all looking in different directions. The youngest person that I could find on their list of candidates, or their picture of candidates, is Selwyn District Councillor Elizabeth Munt. You might remember her from when she ran for council in 2023 and stuff went knocking on her door going, hey, we know you're a member of Voices for Freedom. Would you like to talk about it? And she hid behind the door going, no, I don't want to say a thing. She runs a number of conspiracy-fueled Facebook pages in the region. She's been caught out making climate change denial posts on social media and then forgetting that she hasn't swapped her accounts around, so deleting them and putting them onto her fake accounts. She ran a range of how to get elected events in the lead up to the last year's local body elections, and it looks like she's going to be running probably in the Selwyn electorate for New Zealand First, and she seems to be one of the youngest people that they've gone. She's in her, I want to say, late 30s, early 40s, but that's the caliber of candidate that we're looking at.
This is the problem. Like, so who's apart from Hannah, who's the youngest MP? They're all like 40.
Yeah.
Hannah, and then
Tom Rutherford is young, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom Rutherford, he's from National. Tamitha's young. Tamitha.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I should have remembered that one.
True.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay, there's a few of them then. But
yeah, on average, the global age for a politician is 55. In the United States, it's 65 to 67.
Too old.
It's the United States, very old politicians. But around the world, it's 55 is the average age. Isn't that insane? They just won't let go.
So I've still got
give
time.
The world. Just give the world over to Gen X at least.
Yeah,
millennials, just let go. Why won't you? I don't understand. These people are past. A lot of these people are past retirement age. Can I just?
And also, in the private sector, they hate it.
Yes. Can I say Winston could have retired close to when I was born? Like, how old this man? Just go.
Yeah.
Go home. Do what regular old people used to do. My grandparents, as soon as they retired, just obsessed about the garden. Just doing garden stuff. Just go do garden stuff. Give the world, let go.
And because you can't keep up with technology as well. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You don't want to just turn into an age.
Let's not be too mean to older people, because there's a lot of people out there.
I love old people.
Yeah, there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience that I think are very handy in a lot of older people, and it's not a bad thing to have that in Parliament, to have that perspective, but it's when you have people who are there who feel like they're milking it that becomes a problem. And making that their sales pitch, we're old, so you should vote for us, is a really horrible sales pitch for a large majority of audiences. But who votes?
Old people.
It's the older guys.
Yeah.
No. And that's true. I'm all for the Bernie Sanders, right?
Yeah. That's what I mean, though.
What's
Like,
Bernie
you can't convince young people to vote if you have no young candidates. Like, that's the problem with a lot of the parties, though. They have like 40 as your youngest. Like, really?
In saying that, though, I hate to point out that Winston Peters is gaining a younger audience. There is a very, for lack of a better term, very incel type of young man at university age that is very much seeing Winston as like a real kind of leader there. And I think it's just because of a lack of ability to understand the large parts of the world, and Winston simplifies everything down to just race.
But they take history out of the curriculum. Is that why people are falling for Winston's rhetoric? Because I know I've heard his rhetoric before.
Yeah, it's true.
All right,
and
let's go back. Yeah. Right, let's go back to answering our question. Question 2. If Nelson Mandela was alive today, he would be campaigning for? You guys want to lock in your answers?
It would be David Seymour.
David Seymour.
Oh, I thought it was going to be New Zealand first. I just felt like that was something Winston would say.
No, David Seymour.
Remember last election, David was like, "Oh, Kate Shepherd would vote for me," and everybody else would vote. But like everyone would have voted for David Seymour, apparently.
Reminder: Nelson Mandela's children replied, and David basically implied that he knew more about Nelson Mandela than they did.
Yeah.
The grandson said he would not have campaigned for the ACT Party. I love that.
Yeah.
But he's also said the same thing about the chiefs who signed the treaty. He said that they would probably all be ACT voters. And then when the descendants of those chiefs said politely go away with it, he then disputed that and basically implied that he knew more about them as well. I'm not surprised if somewhere in there he would have said that Jesus probably would have voted for him as well.
I think he did at one stage.
I thought I dreamed that. Damn it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was really hoping that was a dream.
Yeah. Just to tie that in very nicely as well, though, this is a super chat that's come through from Mr. Arvid's $2. Thanks for that. Nelson Mandela's birthday was yesterday.
Cancer babies.
Yes, we feel so much.
We're the best.
All right. We'll set up the next question, and then we'll give people time to think about this one. So question 3, what do these current National Party MPs have in common? A, they all voted against the Environment and Regulated Products or Smoking Tobacco Amendment Bill. They all voted against conversion therapy ban, or they all voted against the Holidays Increasing Sick Leave Amendment Bill. And honestly, it could be any of them.
Yeah, it could be any of them.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is a really good one. So people can lock their answers into the chat there. Sean, would you like to give us a setup on your piece that we're about to show?
So basically my little mini documentary is kind of a response to the gang debate and how National have basically kind of made this their real issue. And the general thesis of the documentary is to basically kind of make the case that neoliberalism has the kind of ideological project that National and ACT are the descendants of, is the same project that in a lot of ways kind of created the mechanisms for how we ended up with gangs as we know them. I go into it in more detail in the documentary. That was my first time ever trying to edit a YouTube video. So please bear with me. There are going to be some kind of echoes. There might be a little bit of awkward kind of cuts. And also the first 5 seconds disappeared when I edited it. And I don't know where it went and I can't get it back. So just in case you're wondering if you feel like it just starts, you're only missing the first 5 seconds. So
In the future, this was all a stylistic choice. You're going for a really specific ambiance that you want the audience to feel, and some of
Yeah.
that comes down to making it feel much more raw than they're anticipating. How's that for
Yeah.
a sales pitch?
It's a good
That's
choice.
great. Sweet.
All right.
Awesome. Let's do this. Of the very economic project that helped create the conditions for gangs to flourish in the first place. Now, to be clear, did neoliberalism invent gangs? No, that would be historically dishonest. Gangs existed in New Zealand long before the Rogernomic reforms of the 1980s. The first motorcycle gangs emerged during the late 50s and early 60s, influenced by American biker culture spreading through Hollywood films at the time. The Hells Angels established their very first chapter outside the United States in Auckland in 1961. The Mongrel Mob emerged during the 1960s in Hawke's Bay, while Black Power formed in Wellington at around 1970. By the 70s, gangs were already a serious social issue in New Zealand. They were violent, they were involved in assaults, intimidation, property crime, and brutal conflicts with rival groups. Many members came from backgrounds marked by poverty, abuse, racism, state care, and social exclusion. Gangs provided some people with a sense of belonging and identity that they were not finding elsewhere. But there is an important distinction that often gets lost in today's debate. The gangs of the 1960s and 70s were not the same organizations we recognize today. They were generally smaller, more loosely structured groups built around loyalty, territory, motorcycles, and social identity. Crime was present, sure, but it did not possess the same level of organization, financial power, drug networks, or intergenerational influence that gangs have developed since. In 1981, they built around loyalty, territory, motorcycles, and social identity. Same level of organization, financial power, drug networks, or intergenerational influence that 100 gang members across 80 gangs or gang chapters nationwide. They were a problem, sure, but they were not yet the entrenched parallel institutions that many communities experience today. Then came Rogernomics. The Rogernomic reforms of the 1980s, as well as the Rufination reforms of the 1990s, transformed New Zealand's economy. Large sections of the economy were deregulated, state assets were corporatized and sold off, union power weakened dramatically, industries that had provided generations of working class New Zealanders with stable employment began disappearing. Manufacturing jobs vanished, freezing works closed, forestry communities were devastated, railways shrank, regional economies that had existed around these industries were completely hollowed out, and the impact, it will not surprise the viewer to know, was not equally distributed. Māori communities were disproportionately affected because Māori workers were heavily represented in many of the industries that were dismantled. Entire communities lost not just employment, but the structures and institutions that had grown around that employment. Because a job is never really just a job, a stable economy provides more than income. It provides routine, connection, pride, and a sense that the future is something worth investing in. When those opportunities disappear, the damage is not simply reflected in unemployment statistics. It appears in families under pressure, communities losing confidence, and young people searching for somewhere else to find belonging. At the same time, many of the institutions that had traditionally provided stability were weakened. Welfare became more punitive, access to state housing tightened. Unemployment rose sharply, social mobility declined in many working class communities. And when institutions retreat, other institutions fill the vacuum. This criminality, they offer identity, belonging, protection, income, status, structure, and family. Those things do not excuse the harm gangs have caused. They do not justify violence or organized crime, but they do explain why gangs can become so powerful in communities where other institutions have failed. They enjoy because in many cases the gang is offering something that they cannot find elsewhere. That is why understanding gangs requires more than simply asking what individuals did wrong. It requires asking what conditions allow gangs to be become one of the few places where some people could find connection and opportunity. And you can see this transformation in the numbers. Police estimates suggest gangs in 1981 to more than 10,000 patched members by 1996, and the number since then has only grown. But the transformation is not just numerical. Gangs have become increasingly central, with prison networks more important. Membership has become increasingly generational. What had once been loose groups on the margins of society have now become deeply entrenched criminal organizations. Neoliberalism did not create gangs, but it did help dismantle many of the economic and social structures that previously gave vulnerable communities alternatives. And that is the central irony. The same framework that helped weaken many of the institutions holding these communities together now likes to present itself as the solution to the consequences of that weakening. Because punishment is easy. It gives us a person to blame. It gives politicians something to announce. It gives the public the feeling that action is being taken. And there is a degree in comfort in that. But it still avoids the harder question. Why did gangs become so successful at recruiting in the first place? Well, because people are easier to punish than systems are to fix. We have to do more than respond after people have entered criminal networks. We have to create alternatives before they get there. Which brings me to the Kahu Kura program delivered by Hard to Reach. The program recognised a reality that community workers, researchers, and frontline organisations have understood for decades. If gangs are strongest where communities are struggling, then reducing gang influence requires more than simply increasing punishment. It requires reaching people who are at risk of being pulled into those networks and connecting them with support around addiction, housing, and social services. But instead of debating whether that approach was effective, the program became the centre of a political attack. National repeatedly claimed that Labour had given $3 million to gangs. That was a lie. The program was not funded through ordinary taxpayer money. It was funded through New Zealand's Proceeds of Crime Fund, money and assets seized from criminals under the Criminal Proceeds Recovery Act and reinvested into initiatives designed to reduce gang organisation and drug-related harm. In other words, the money taken from criminal activity was being used in an attempt to prevent criminal activity. You can disagree with whether Kahu Kura was the right approach. You can argue whether or not that money could have been spent differently. Those are legitimate debates. But the claim that Labour simply gave money to gangs ignores the purpose of the program and the source of the funding. After forming government, National scrapped the program, and once again New Zealand returned to the same cycle that has defined our gang debate for decades. Communities experience economic and social decline. Gangs grow stronger. Governments respond with tougher punishment. The underlying conditions remain. Then, years later, we act surprised when the problem continues. None of this excuses violent crime. People's ambition is to have fewer gangs 20 years from now. Rather than simply more gang members behind bars, we have to ask a more difficult question. Not just how do we punish gangs, but why have gangs become so attractive to so many New Zealanders in the first place? Because until we are willing to confront the conditions that allow gangs to flourish, we will continue fighting the symptoms while ignoring the causes. And that is the great tragedy of New Zealand's gang debate. We keep asking how to defeat the monster without ever acknowledging that it is a monster that we created.
Fantastic.
Very impressive. Very impressive.
Can't
so
even,
much.
Can't even work the mic. Yeah, thank you. All right, people in the comments, you can wake up. It's over. Yeah, so as you can see, there were a few kind of like technical issues that made me cringe. But yeah, that has been something that has always kind of grinded my gears for many years, because this has been the issue that really National have adopted. And although it was a Labour government reform, it was the kind of reform that we would usually associate with parties like ACT or National today. So, I think there is. Thank you, guys. All these comments. Thank you. So glad you enjoyed it. It's always been something that's really kind of that I've took issue with. It's like, hey, how do you think these guys got to this point? How do you think gangs became the sophisticated criminal network that it is today? You know, we created neoliberalism did create a vacuum for it. Yeah,
and it is like I forget which ex-KKK leader it was that said this, but there's a reformed leader of the KKK over in the States said that the way that they recruit is by finding people who are just searching for a community and also somebody to hate. And I remember he said that if a football team, or probably NFL, if a sports team had approached him, he'd have done that instead. If they had approached him at that time in his life. And having grown up in a gang area, I know the easiest way to recruit people into gangs is by making the police and by making justice the bad guy. And so for every time we're under like a tough on crime government, it is so easy to do that. And now we're at a point now where we have more gang members than police members. I understand.
Gang members than police. Yeah. So I'll admit. So I showed the numbers from. They were like 2,000 to 8,000 prior to and after the euthanasia and Rogernomic reforms. I don't even know what the number is now. It would be crazy, I'm sure. I found it very interesting that, you know, kind of like prior to those reforms, they were just kind of like these groups, you know, they were kind of, you know, what you see in the old kind of American biker movies. Like, I don't know if anybody's ever seen Easy Rider, you know, stuff like that. And it was only after those Rogernomic reforms and euthanasia reforms that these outfits getting more entrenched in creating these criminal networks, it was almost bred out of necessity. And
they were just groups of community, and you'll find that people that are in them because they feel like they have nothing else, and they are searching for that community. And remember, the Polynesian Panthers were also considered a gang at the time, and they have done so much good for the community since then. But they formed at the same time and out of necessity.
One of the things I noticed when I was having a look at the video before, I found an interview with Miriam Margolyes. Everybody knows Miriam is sort of this foul-mouthed little British old lady, and she did a tour here, and she did a couple of TV things while she was here. And one of the episodes she did on her tour, she was talking to a gang member in the South Island, and you've got these two people from I think it was the mob, covered in tats. You know, they look very intimidating, and they sit down and explain to her that from their perspective, it's joining a club. And in their mind, it's still a club. And they do the same things that all clubs do. They create that sense of community, that sense of belonging, because nobody else wanted them. But also that there was this really interesting through line from Borstals, from care homes, from children in state care that go through into gang membership. And it's almost like an immediate pipeline that's set up for them to do that. And nobody's ever broken that sort of chain, which I thought was really fascinating, because she's sitting there, this little old lady going, I'm kind of scared you're going to kill me. And the people that she was chatting to are absolutely lovely about it. Like, no, don't worry. We just do what everybody else does. We just, our support group.
The other part of that is also the address of abuse in state care. The investigation that came out in 2024, I think, also found that it's like 80%, possibly higher, 80% of people who are in gangs right now are people who went through state care and were abused in state care and are at that older age bracket. And so when you have governments that, you know, on both sides, when you have governments that further the breakdown of community, when they further the disillusionment of young people you have increased power given to those gangs. And so it is like gangs as a whole, just like crime in general, are both things that can be heavily addressed when you look at poverty and address poverty and how that affects people.
Like a lot of what gang recruitment relies on is young men mainly, having just a lack of options.
Yeah.
And, it's very easy to kind of blame somebody for taking those for making bad choices. But at the end of the day, if you gradually take away their choices to the point that the only options they have left are bad ones, you can't blame them for choosing a bad option. And you mentioned state care before. Like, how are you going to bootstrap yourself out of that situation?
You're right. It is those choices, and I think people like David Seymour, Ben Winston Peters, and Christopher Luxon all like to frame it as if, like we all have choices. These people just made bad choices. They're bad.
No.
They were born bad.
Here's the thing:
we do
have choices. We do all have choices, but some of us have more options.
Yeah,
like it's we all do have choices. You're right, but some of us have more options, and some of us have very few. There's even a few of us who have nothing but bad options.
Yeah.
And
I've told this story before, and I'll tell it again because it's a personal life story where I know very much. I was an angry teenager, and I was sitting in a car with my best mate, and we were getting really frustrated at growing up in largely poverty and poor neighborhoods, and seeing other people around us who we felt like they were taking for granted the wealth that they had, the fact that they had two parents, the fact that they had two parents with really good incomes, the fact that they had all of this and they had a saving deposit for their university saved, and me and my mate were still really scrounging and suffering. Really, it was really rough. And I remember sitting in a car with my mate, and we were discussing, like, how do we get out of this? And one of those options was doing something, joining a group of people that were not nice people, that were not making an honest living. And that was so appealing to us, was to go about it the wrong way. And then I remember we had a conversation. We said to each other, hey, look, all right, let's give this one more go. Let's be super supportive of each other. Let's just give this a go and do this honestly and try and find jobs and move out of this place and move into the city and make something of ourselves. Let's try do that and try and believe in ourselves as much as some of these other people in our lives believe in us. And we did that, right? And we were lucky because that worked, and we got out of those situations. We moved out of those neighborhoods and we did good things, and here we are today. But some people are not that lucky, and some people are not even as fortunate as I was to have people in my life to say positive things to me. Some people, in fact, have the opposite, where there are people in their lives telling them horrible things, telling them they can't make it, that they are worthless. Some of them have no one talking to them at all. And so those people are presented with the same options as me and my friends were sitting in that car late at night, and they would have chosen the other. So it is that easy. I could have been in that group, but I was lucky. And so this is why I get so frustrated with like Luxon and Nicola and all of that, posing, gangs, gang members as just bad people with no explanation. They're just bad people. We should punish them. Let's spend an exorbitant amount of money to look after them in prison, without realizing that prison is not a threat to people that have nothing. Prison is 4 walls, 3 square meals, and I get to hang out with my mates every day. There's exercise time and I get cigarettes. That's what prison is. That doesn't sound like a punishment when you have nothing.
Yeah.
And so when you've got governments like this one that increase the difficulty of those communities, you were just making it easier to join a gang.
I was thinking while you were saying that, like, why do people join gangs as a community and not like a church or a dance class or something? But I think it comes down to legitimacy, which is kind of what I touched on a little bit in my video. Like, gangs sort of have that public trust and that legitimacy because they believe, like, people believe that they can exercise authority because they're, maybe they use violence to do that, or maybe they have good connections to people or that kind of thing. And so I think when our institutions aren't meeting people's needs, it's only natural for people to seek out a sense of belonging and legitimacy within their community. So, yeah, it's sad, but yeah.
It's a horrible thought. It's a horrible thought, but I almost feel like there are probably some people on the right who do understand how advantageous it is to have more gang members to point at, and so they're probably not that worried or concerned about it because it just gives them more bad guys to fight. Likewise, they're probably not that worried about record numbers of New Zealanders going over to Australia because that also means that their unemployment numbers are lower. You know what I mean?
I'll do you one better. I'll do you one better. More gang members means more prison beds being filled.
Yeah.
Like these are parties that have well-established ties to the private prison industry. And when you create punitive measures, that is going to result in more people being imprisoned. Not just gang members, but homeless people, unhoused people. And you get to fill up those beds and kind of meet your end of the bargain, so to speak. I agree. These guys need people like gang members to exist. Yeah.
Someone's also pointed out, and that's good to point out as well, Destiny Church recruits in the same way. And cults groups in the same way as you're finding people that are down and out and need somebody to blame and need a purpose. They do recruit in the same way, which is why you get such an insane loyalty to something that is so self-destructive. Destiny Church, gangs, all of that stuff. Also,
I think it's because I said churches before, but like there's a lot of churches that aren't like that, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, sorry. That was my fault.
It's bound to happen. I've said a lot. It's fine.
It's all right. I'll throw in a distraction here, okay? We've got a quiz answer that we want to hear from people. Wrong button. So many buttons. So many things. Go remove. Enter stage. There we go. Yeah, weird. All right, so question 3. What do these current National Party MPs have in common? They all voted against the Environment and Regulated Products Amendment or Smoke Tobacco Bill. They all voted against conversion therapy ban, or they all voted against the Holidays Increasing Sick Leave Amendment Bill. What do you guys want to lock in as your answer?
I think it's all 3, but just
all the above?
Yeah, I think it might be all of the above, but I'm going to go with B specifically. B stands out to me. Because, I know that Simeon Brown definitely voted against the conversion therapy. I don't know about the others. I know Simeon definitely did. So
I changed my answer. Here's the thing. Shane Reti, I actually do respect. I actually do. Out of all those people, Shane is the guy. And even look at that photo. I just feel so bad for him because it's very clear.
He looks so sad.
This guy thought he could join National and he'd be able to do it and just turn his back on everything that he'd learned as a doctor. He really thought he could do it. And at some point along the way, National realized that he wasn't going to be ruthless enough. So they replaced him with Pee-wee. What's his name? What's the guy?
Pee-wee Jr.
Yeah. Replaced him with Simeon. That was a genuine slip up. They replaced him with Simeon Brown.
Miniature of health.
Give him the miniature of health, who has no real conscience and no care for and knows nothing about the health industry. Ministry,
but he thinks he can regulate it.
And so for Shane, I'm like, well, surely he wouldn't vote against conversion therapy. I think Shane's better than that. I'm gonna go with A.
Yeah.
Wait, no, okay. C.
Okay. You think the doctor voted for smoking? This doctor.
That's hard, bro. That's hard.
Yeah.
Maybe B.
All right. So this was a trick question. These assholes voted against all of these bills. So yes, it was all of the.
Come on, Shane. I defended you. What's that Tyra Banks meme? We believed in you.
I believed in you.
We were rooting for you.
We were all rooting for you. Damn it, Shane. I'm going to send this clip to him. I want him to know that he's let me down.
No, Dr. Sad let you down.
Believed in you, Shane. God damn.
Yeah, and he's gone kind of quiet since he lost that portfolio. Like you don't hear much
look
about
him
because he's not standing again. Like he's gone, just gone.
Yeah,
He
it's
looks so
miserable.
sad.
Well, actually, I don't think I've
He's
ever
the-
seen him smile. Yeah.
It is
No.
it is very different, and something I really appreciated. Actually, I saw Chris Hipkins acknowledge this last year. Is he acknowledged how much of a different experience it is being an MP versus being a Maori MP.
Yeah.
It is such a different experience, and I'm so glad that to see a white guy acknowledge that, because like all these other guys, they could make these decisions and then they go, maybe to their families, maybe to like a community hall thing where they get judged. Like when you're Maori and you're in these spaces, there are so many events and opportunities to be judged by an entire community. There are so many times where you're going to have to walk onto a marae and everybody knows what you have just done. It is such a different experience, which is why it blows my mind when people like Port Tucker can just be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it wasn't
Even-
me."
Even Maori
Oh,
content
that was
creators
an
say that
operation on there. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a
It's
same
like
for those
being-
content creators.
judged
I-
against
I-
your own sort of
I
community.
couldn't comprehend going onto a pai and having that wall of criticism aimed at you when you show up to speak on a pai. Like it's not something I would ever experience directly, and it must be such a difficult position to be
Yeah.
in.
Mm.
Made
It
Helen
is a
Clark.
real
cry.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
It'd probably
Such
keep
a
you honest, though, wouldn't it?
You'd-
It
well,
should.
Yeah.
hasn't.
It should.
It should.
Should.
It
It
should.
should,
Yeah.
which is why Tama is an enigma to me, because that guy still walks up and plays oblivious and seems to think the rest of us believe him, but it's just insane. Like they're the fucking conservation bill. My God, when I saw that he was potentially getting rid of Cathedral Cove and the top of Mount Taranaki, I'm like, what is this even? Who? Yeah. Anyway, it's a different experience for these MPs.
All right, let's go into the next question and we'll get people thinking about this one for a while. Question 4: Who is this man, and how did he make Christopher Luxon look like an absolute idiot with just one sentence?
Oh God, I don't
Ponder
know.
this. I actually don't know the answer to this one.
I am actually waiting. I'm waiting with bated breath on this one. I've got no clue.
That is gonna pick
Is he
a
an
random.
international leader of some kind?
What I would assume is that this international leader maybe said something positive about New Zealand that maybe Christopher Luxon had repealed that week. I'm going to go with maybe he said something in reference to pay equity, or maybe kind of some kind of socially progressive policy that we used to hang our hat on, but maybe Luxon had scrapped or undone. Something like that. That's what that's my guess.
Man, I got no clue who this
All
guy
right.
is.
Well,
I'm
like, is
sorry.
it
we'll have
to
a
do
little
with-
think of it.
Is it to do with when Luxon got up and was like, Israel? Remember he was like, Israel and Iran are like you could just tell he had no idea what he was talking
They're
about.
very naughty.
Yeah, he was like, there's like a war.
Very naughty. You think that's not even that's too harsh for what he said.
yeah.
No.
He didn't say anything close to that bad.
No,
I mean,
no,
bad
that's
against him.
That's true. All right,
All right, who's
next,
this man?
I have no idea, but we'll find out after the next section. We'll let people stew this one for a little bit. So this one here for you, Paul Henry. Have you guys heard of him? I believe he might be known to a few people. Are you aware of who this individual is and why he's been in the news lately?
I'm aware of who Tim Jago is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm aware of what about the unsavory news that came out about him last week. I noticed that if you were to Google the words ACT Party, just general ACT Party, and put them through Google News or images, it's mainly Paul Henry that comes up. It seems awfully convenient that this announcement came literally within hours of that Tim Jago news breaking. Yeah.
I met Paul Henry when I was on the Traders. So I
right.
That's honestly one of the reasons why I wanted to have this up, because I wanted a Traders story.
Was he hosting Euro in February? I didn't know that. I thought he was like new. All right.
We got on like a house on fire. So when I saw that he was standing, I was like, oh, we've got someone on our side sneaking in there, infiltrating, and they have no idea. And so I thought that was great. But yeah, he's very like, the way he came across was very like doing his job. But I just think it's kind of weird because I thought he lived in California. So I'm like, are you allowed to just not live here and run as an MP?
Chances are he has a house there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but he lived, like, he only visited for traders, like, for filming. Then he went back to California. So I'm like, are you even from here anymore? And I find that kind of weird. Because I'm like, imagine if, like, I lived in England for, like, 20 years and then I was just like, is that allowed?
Yeah.
Like, must be, but it's weird to me.
That's like, like that guy from Shortland Street that ran for NZ First last time. He lived in Australia.
Oh,
He's Donahue?
Donahue, Lee
Hunter.
Donahue.
Hunter
Yeah,
from
he was
Shortland
great.
Street.
Oh no, he was my favorite. That was
good. Those were good clips.
He winked at me. He winked at me, that Hunter from Shortland Street, Lee Donahue. When I was 10, I was at Woolworths in Lower Hutt, and he walked past me, and I was staring at him because I was like, he's from Shortland Street. And he winked at me. And I was like 10. I'll never forget.
Just Shortland Street people getting political. Ugh.
Yeah.
All right. But before Traders, did you know who Paul Henry was?
No. Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. You did?
Yeah, I knew. Oh, I knew that he'd said some pretty not nice stuff on the news, and then he's kind of been socially shunned out of broadcasting.
This is what I'm wondering. I think he is known to our most predominant group of voters. But I would say, I mean, like when he was announced, I was like, I haven't even heard that name in like 15 years.
I don't think most people my age would know who he is.
I heard that name about 12 months ago when he was on the list of people that Paul Goldsmith put forward for the board for TVNZ. And he was one of a number of people put on boards that David Seymour had suggested. And that included people like Stephen Rainbow, and the Human Rights Commissioner, and Melissa Darby, the Race Relations Commissioner.
Is that the Human Rights Commissioner
who's currently under investigation for...
Is that the guy who said the transphobic comments on his Facebook and pulled that stuff out? And now he's under investigation for, what is it? For we don't know? Or can we say?
Yeah, they haven't said, just that he is under investigation.
So transphobic bullshit and also under investigation for something.
Yes.
And he's the Human Rights Commissioner?
Yeah.
Right, they're choosing the best, though.
Oh, yeah, but our Race Relations Commissioner, Dr. Melissa Darby, was one of the founding members of the Free Speech Union because she wanted to get Molyneux and Southern here to talk about their anti-Muslim bullshit. And now she is our Race Relations Commissioner, and David Seymour was the one who suggested her.
The Free Speech Union? Is that the same union that, didn't they interview somebody from the Epstein list?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I find it so funny that all these articles are listed under celebrity. When I'm like, Jordan, when they wrote about you in the news, it was under like politics or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you have more followers than Paul Henry. Like, you are literally more celebrity than him.
And the National Party.
They don't like the National Party. That's so good.
So Paul Henry has a storied history. He's been in the headlines. He's made headlines a number of times for a number of things. Like he used the R word to describe Susan Boyle. He made fun of, I think it was a Delhi official's surname because to him it sounded like a funny word. He's made fun of people with disabilities. He said that the gay community are unnatural. Like he's got a rap sheet of what you would expect from these kind of right-wing political commentators. Of all of the media coverage, only 2 pushed back on his getting where he is in his position to stand. One was, I think, a comment from Stuff. Might have been the Post. Sorry, yeah, the Post specifically pushed back, calling him controversial. And the other was Awaz, which is a smaller media outlet that does media for diaspora and immigrant communities. And they were the ones that focused on what he'd said about Sheila Dixit and exactly how offensive that was. Everyone else is just like, oh, isn't he quirky?
Could I just say that this is an example of how this story is an example of how the most balanced media to do with this particular issue has come from us. It's social media political commentators that have pointed out everything else that he's done, and I think in a more fairly balanced way.
How can you
It's so
hate gay
frustrating.
people, but like make your entire personality being a camp nudist who lives in California? Like you can't.
Yeah. The thing about Henry is that more people should know, because I know he hates when people know this, is that he lost his first bid for power to Georgina Bayer, and he lost in Carterton, predominantly at the time was like a white older male voter category, and it's because he decided to, instead of campaigning on why he was good for everything and why he had his ideas, he campaigned on being a man. And if you watch all of his interviews, that's all he has. Whereas Georgina Bayer had actual policy ideas and had ways that she was going to help the community. Whereas he just talked about how much of a man he was. I think he even had a billboard indicating that he was a man. And the farmers of the time, bless them, I wish we had the same group of people today. All middle-aged older white men, they all said that they were just sick of his nonsense and they preferred Georgina Bayer. They didn't really care about her past. They didn't care that she was transgender. They just said that she got stuff done and she was no nonsense. And that we just wouldn't have that right now. We just don't have that same caliber of conversation
That
anymore.
video of her just walking down Parliament being like, screw you, screw you. So good. Like, makes me cry. Like, I would have voted for her too.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I've only ever been to Carterton once, and it was not long after she was elected. I stopped in there and I went to go and grab a coffee, and my options were black or white, with or without sugar. And I'm just like, that sums up to me what Carterton feels like. Yeah, it's classic. It's classic and hardworking.
The news clip of her winning is on YouTube. You should absolutely watch it. She celebrates in a pub with a bunch of other true blue, Kiwi blokes in a pub. She's serving pints, and they're stoked.
So cool.
And she was also the mayor as well. And this is the first openly transgender MP in the world. And
So brave,
how far backwards have we gone? But she is definitely.
Yeah, you're saying that. I'm like, that would never happen today. Like,
it would become such an issue.
Yeah,
it could happen today. I think there'd be a louder opposition. But
no, I'm saying that the idea, because the way that I feel like we have just become so culturally divided, and in terms of a transgender person going into a pub in some small rural town that has probably, chances are, been captured by the New Zealand First or Hobson's Pledge crowd, I think would be a lot more difficult and a lot harder to come by than it was in 1999, which was nearly 30 years ago. I think we have regressed. Yeah.
She was amazing. And I think I encourage everyone to go look for her speeches on YouTube, because they are like, very few of them are not tearjerkers. Even her speech post being an MP, where she spoke at the graduation, I think, of Massey University, is one of the most inspiring speeches I've ever seen. And her speech entering into Parliament was not only powerful, but was hilarious, and possibly one of the first and last speeches that opens with a dick joke. It's fantastic. It is fantastic. She had a sense of humor. She was a wonderful woman. And Paul Henry is just pales in comparison to the power and mana that she had.
Yeah. All right. So, quick question here then: does this Paul Henry stunt pay off for ACT? Do you think this is a good stunt, or do you think this is a bad stunt that's not going to pan out for them?
I think it's a bad one. I don't see any kind of, like, obviously it's been done to boost poll numbers, and it might work if Paul Henry knew what he was talking about. He simply, like, something I've learned through watching Paul Henry is that you can work in political news for however long he worked in that field and still not know a lick about politics. The fact that he kind of tried to kind of say, I want my kids to grow up in the New Zealand that I grew up in. You grew up in a New Zealand with free university, my dude. You grew up in a New Zealand where, as Jack Tame pointed out this morning in that disaster interview,
where the tax rate was north of 60%.
Yeah.
Like the New Zealand that you want your kids to grow up in, we in a lot of ways want your kids to grow up in that New Zealand as well. And so I'm kind of a little bit confused that that is the period that you're citing. The fact that, and this wasn't called out enough as well. He said that I think it was in regards to a block of cheese, that the low income worker who can't afford that block of cheese, he said, I want them to be able to afford that block of cheese. I'll be working to make sure they can afford it. And I'm like, it made my mind go back to literally a quote from David Seymour last year, where in response to the spike in butter prices, David Seymour said that that's not a bad thing, that we're paying more for butter. And I'm like, you are saying all these things that run completely counter to what the ACT Party is saying. And it's not really me saying that. Like, I would imagine that these ACT Party figures are just watching him on these news broadcasts, especially this morning with Jack Taman, just pulling out their hair. Like, I don't think it's going to get the poll. I don't think they're going to see a boost in the polls. Certainly not the kind that they're expecting. I think, especially after today's interview, the shine has worn off, and I think he's going to be facing a lot more kind of scrutiny in news interviews in a way that he hasn't these past week. Every interview, it seemed, up until his interview with Jack Tan this morning, has been a real softball. Yeah. I've watched 3 or 4 of his interviews, and there have been no follow-up questions in regards to statements he has made just this week alone. It's just talking about his time as a broadcaster. So I don't think it's going to pan out for them the way that they think it will.
I think it's not what I would do if I had a political party. I think it's bad politics, but I don't think it'll be that bad given the standard for their existing followers is already pretty low. I kind of feel like it's not gaining or losing votes. It just kind of feels like a middle of the road kind of move. It does very much feel like it's, oh shit, Tim Jago's about to hit the news, we better do something big. And I just don't see any other reason for them to do it, really. Because
the only thing I can think is maybe they're like, oh, then we can argue like, oh, well, Te Pāti Māori's got broadcasters and they're, but like, I don't know, cool, you all have broadcasters. Like,
yeah, that's not what I want in a government.
But also,
I'm not looking for that.
Maybe the broadcasting minister.
Yeah.
I've got nothing against necessarily broadcasters entering politics. You do need to have a degree of knowledge, though. And like, I think if there's any walking, talking case for why we need maybe like a remedial civics test that politicians have to take before announcing their campaign, it's Paul Henry. This is a man who outright said he didn't know what the marginal tax rate was back when he was growing up. This is a man who didn't know that university was free. Like the fact that this guy could potentially be in a position where his choices are consequential to millions of people. You do need to have some basic content knowledge. This is something we understand this is something that many schools understand for any incoming students. We want to know where they're at, so we give them basic literacy and maths tests so that we know where they are. That set a standard that we have for our kids, for some reason, we don't have for politicians.
That's what I just want to say. It's something that happens a lot, is that it's like the standard for being a student is a lot higher than the standard for being an MP a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I just feel like if I knew that I was about to present to class, which is essentially what an interview with Jack Tame is, if I knew I was meant to present to class tomorrow morning, I'd at least cram. But Paul was so unprepared for that. He didn't know anything. And then when they watched his announcement, you could see, I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but David was very much trying to stop himself from jumping in, because Paul went on a rant about how we should borrow more money, which is against ACT Party policy. But then he started talking about how we need to borrow more to do more.
Yeah,
And then Dave was like,
traveling the world on his yacht in a really relatable conversation.
And that's why I don't think it's going to pay off for ACT, because if you are one of these voters who have left the ACT party for whatever reason and you've aligned maybe with New Zealand First or National or TOP, I'm putting TOP out there. I think if you watch that, if you've been watching interviews with Paul Henry to kind of be like, oh, is this somebody who can maybe bring me back in? If you're watching his interviews, it's not inspiring confidence that ACT is anything but a sinking ship this election.
It also means that the ethnic members of the ACT party will now have to answer to all the bullshit racist things that Paul is likely going to say.
That's actually,
and their comment sections right now, I've seen so many comments from ACT people who have said shit, quote, I was going to vote for you, but I dislike Indians in harsh terms. And they're saying that on the Indian ACT members pages. And so and now we've got this Indian free trade deal. This is a group of people that are like filled with racism. And that has worked really well for ACT all this far. And Paul's coming in, he's probably going to back that up with some sly comments here and there, but their own followers are imploding.
Yeah.
I just think it's going to be a nothing thing.
And I'll add this little factor. I think Paul Henry is doing this with the expectation that he's going to be high on the list. Paul Henry is doing this with the expectation that he's going to be an MP, regardless of whether or not ACT.
Yeah, I don't know why Laura McClure's celebrating. She's going to be gone.
Sweetheart, I think you need a little bit of a refresher on how list ranking
MP works.
Yeah.
I think.
And I'm kind of like, and that's why I don't think it's going to work, because I think one of two things is going to happen. Paul Henry is either going to see the writing on the wall and think, oh man, they're not going to give me a high spot on the list. And because no doubt that's what the conversation would be behind the scenes at the ACT Party headquarters. They're looking at Paul Henry's interview appearances and going, we can't give this guy a high ranking. And I think either Paul Henry's going to see that or they're going to make the choice themselves. I wouldn't be surprised if he withdraws his candidacy. I wouldn't.
Oh, we can hope.
Let's keep this, so that I can point to it and say, look at this. I was right.
From his rhetoric so far, it also feels like Paul is more an attack on National than he is on the left. Because he's already gone after Luxon twice, and I'm like,
he has been targeting. And by the way, his targets on Luxon have been very effective. Like, if you want a good way to kind of just really bring kind of Christopher Luxon at the knees, it's one thing for us to talk crap about the guy, but when you have guys on your own side basically saying, bro, you ain't him, that would be devastating to a guy like Luxon, because that's been the main critique of him from Henry, that he's not John Key.
Especially because I haven't seen Luxon in a while.
That's because he's been on holiday. He's in Te Puke, I believe.
He's on holiday. What about
long holiday?
Right. What about Nicola Willis? I haven't seen her either. It's such a time. I just feel like the leaders of the National Party are just completely absent, and they're not going to debates. It's like they've just given up.
That's so weird. I thought they were going to release their financial plan, because they keep saying Labor should do that. I would assume they would do theirs first.
I'm going to go back 10 minutes because I've been trying to say this. I'm going to interrupt.
Sorry, do it.
We're going back. I feel like this is such an annoying thing for me as a content creator, especially as a woman, probably. I don't know if you might get the same thing. Let me know. But like, what are your qualifications? Do people not notice that I'm purposely studying so that I don't enter Parliament as an asshole? Like, I've worked in so many industries because our economy sucks, purposely studying political science so that I don't end up like Paul Henry pretending I know what I'm talking about. And like, I get so this frustrates me so much because I get it all the time. Like, what are your qualifications? Like, what are the current people's qualifications?
Yeah.
Because I would say with even half of my degree, I'm more qualified than them. So I don't know. I just wanted to, you guys were talking about it like 10 minutes ago, and I was like, I just really want to say that. Like,
No, you're absolutely right. And Tamitha Paul and Chloe Swarbrick, who are highly qualified political science and law majors, they still get it.
Yeah.
Because there's also that element of misogyny and sexism involved in that
Yeah.
question. It's anything they can do to undermine you, so that they can, instead of coming back with a rebuttal or opposing argument, they can just devalue what you've already said. It's some fucking bullshit.
It's so elitist.
But then at the same time they argue, oh yeah, true blue common sense. It's like, yeah.
I think that's my favorite thing about some of those New Zealand First candidates that are running, who were former councillors or running the council last year under common sense. It's like, yeah, it's common sense to do the definition of gender bill. You know, it's just ridiculous. Should we find the answer to our quiz question?
Yes.
All right. So, who is this man, and how did he make Christopher Luxon look like an absolute idiot with just one sentence? What answers would you guys like to lock in?
I just feel bad for him.
Yeah, I think he cited some kind of progressive policy that maybe Luxon had rolled back that week. My guess is pay equity. That's what I think. Or it could be climate.
Did he congratulate Luxon on something that the previous government did? Because Luxon would accept that.
He would, yeah. He wouldn't feel like
absolutely
an
would.
idiot at all. He wouldn't feel like an idiot at all. Yes,
No
I
shame.
did do that.
All right, let's see what we got. Christopher Luxon and Paul Goldsmith removed Te Reo Māori from an invitation to Australian Immigration Minister Tony Burke for Māori New Year celebrations, claiming Australians would not understand Aotearoa. But Mr. Burke hit back, saying he was well aware of what Aotearoa means. I learnt the word in 1982 thanks to Split Ends, including a reference in the lyrics to 6 Months in a Leaky Boat, he said.
That's so good.
What? Yeah.
The importance of investing in the arts.
Yeah.
So this is an example of the importance of investing in the arts.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Also,
is
like,
such
we have a
good
lot of
question.
Australian, New Zealand companies. Like, that's
Yeah.
so weird. What a weird thing to do.
Well,
Yes.
yeah.
No, that's brilliant. All right, we'll
Go,
go into the
Mr.
last
Burke.
question, and then I'm going to do the sticky question, and then we'll wrap everything up. So, question 5: Who introduced a universal pension paid from age 60 without an income test?
So pension paid from age 60 without an income test.
I think I actually know the answer to this one, so I'm not going to say. I'm going to eat my gummy chocolate.
I feel like I should know this.
Universal pension paid.
I want to say Norman Kirk, only because Michael Joseph Savage would have been the one who kind of created the social welfare framework that existed for 50 years. And there was only 2 Labour prime ministers in between that period. Three aside from himself: Peter Fraser, Norman Kirk, and Walter Nash. And I think out of the 3 of them, it probably would have been Norman Kirk. So I'm going with Norman Kirk.
Okay.
I'm going with what Sean said because he's a teacher, and so if he's wrong,
Yeah, you know,
everybody seems to be going Labour.
I don't know. One of our Labour guys. I'm going to say one of our Labour guys. I think it was a fair bit after Savage. But
it wouldn't have
really
been. Yeah, it wouldn't have been like Keith Holyoake or Sidney Holland. I'm really showing my.
Holyoake's Nationals guy that they.
He was national. He would be, if you were to take Keith Holyoake and put him in today's politics, if you were to take his actual policy positions, he would be a far left member of the Green Party. But that's neither here nor there.
Young National love to point at Holyoake as they're like.
Yeah, I know.
That's
like,
their guy that's like, you wouldn't do that now.
You would laugh.
Do that.
You would laugh Holyoake out of your party. Take it easy. He's more ours than you.
You might be right with Kirk.
You guys can have Roger Douglas. We'll give you him.
They can have anyone else can have Roger Douglas. All right, sticky question for you then. Today is the birthday of a very special, sorted, wealthy, entitled Prime Minister, and it's so hard to buy the man who doesn't worry about the friggin' targets or bottom feeders a good gift. So I thought maybe an experience instead. What is one outcome from his government's decisions you'd like to see the Prime Minister experience, and what is the lesson you hope he learns from it?
We're just going to jump in for Chloe Swarbrick to remind everybody that they have been inviting him to come and talk to the homeless youth, the people that are firmly affected by his decisions. He has been invited to go and meet them, to walk the streets and meet those youth. So far, Just the calendar hasn't lined up, apparently, over how many months. So that is what I would like him to experience.
Here is what I would like him to experience. So if I've thought about this, I thought if I ever come face to face with the guy, what is one question I would ask him? The experience I want is for him to ask this one question, because when he has been confronted with the accusation of Fonterra and Z Energy writing those climate laws that he ended up implementing, whenever people ask him about it, he usually gives one of two answers. It's either it was in effect prior to, it's always something we've been planning. That's number one, which doesn't answer the question. And number two is, I forgot number two, but basically he never actually answers whether it's true. Like, have you actually noticed that?
Yeah.
Like, people have said, did it happen? And he never gives a yes or a no. And like, that would be what the kind of, that would be something I would like to see, a yes or no answer. A yes or no answer.
From Christopher Luxon.
Yeah, did Fonterra or Z Energy, did Fonterra and Z Energy write the laws that you ended up implementing? Just yes or no. If he answers yes, we got him. If he answers no, I think we still got him, because I think that's going to look really bad when the evidence comes out later on that it did happen. So I that's all I want. I want him to just give a concrete yes or no answer. That's all I want. I don't need anything else. I won't even ask a follow-up question. Just give us a yes or no. Because he hasn't denied it. Keep that in mind. He has never officially denied it. He has never denied that it happened. That's what I want. I just want somebody in the media to just give a yes or no.
Oh, look, Sean, what I just say to you very clearly is that New Zealand people deeply care about laws, and they're more focused on what helps them, and what helps them is money to their back pocket and tax relief. And that's what I'm going to deliver. That'll be your answer there.
Oh my God, it's like having him here.
Yeah, I know. That was horrible. Never do that again.
With the headphones as well.
Yeah. Jeez.
Luxon
What's the opposite of ASMR? That was.
Do you remember that video of Lux and the sleep demon where he just says nothing to you but keeps talking? Yeah.
So some of the suggestions that have come through include 6 months. I'll actually take this off so we can actually see everybody's face.
Yeah, that's a good one.
6 months on a benefit with a side of disability issues from Nick Stoneman. Sash here says have his pay swap for the lowest woman whose pay equity he cancelled.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Somebody should. I hope somebody wrote something about school lunches.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
3 weeks on the street from Banksy. Stay positive says being homeless without a night shelter. Mikey says I'd like to see him do 48 hours without a phone, credit card, or home. Mealworms for you says homeless, cold, and hungry. Joshua Park says give him $10 for lunch for a whole week.
Yeah, $50 a week for groceries.
Devlin 3044 says can only use public services for the rest of his life.
I think, you know what? I actually wholeheartedly, I actually legitimately think that should actually be a law. I think if you're going to be a politician, you should be required to use the public services.
I'd be down with that.
Yeah, that's something.
That sounds like a Mamdani law. Come on. Yeah. He's never going to agree to that. Banksy here, 3 weeks on the streets. Nick Stoneman again, a school lunch served up to him by Nancy Lou. Noah thinks a year on a woman's minimum income. So, yes, lots and lots here. All right, let's go back then to our final question.
All you tall poppies in the comments.
Definitely. So, who introduced the universal pension? What's your final answers?
I'm going to go with Norman Kirk.
I'm going to go with Kirk.
Same.
Okay. It was
Oh
Robert
my
Muldoon.
goodness, that is a Shyamalan twist if I've ever seen one.
So Luxon planned to remove age eligibility criteria from 65 to 67, even though he knows Maori and those doing hard labour will be significantly affected. So I can't move that around. It's not one of my things to be able to move. But yeah, the Robert Muldoon's big 1975 campaign was the Dancing Cossacks, because Labour had introduced a universal super campaign. So the way that Muldoon campaign was, we're not going to do this because that leads to communism. We're going to have so much money by 2028 that they're going to own the entire country. That's communism. We're just going to put in a universal, everybody can access it, super payment from the age of 60, which they didn't budget for, which is why we had to go into so much debt to do his big things in the late 70s and early 80s, because we suddenly had this massive pension bill that came through into our budget, and we've had it ever since.
They all kind of look like clones of Jerry Brownlee a little bit, eh?
A little bit, yeah.
I think it's something that happens to you when you are that type of person. I always think of like the bureaucrats from do you remember the alien bureaucrats from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? There's kind of like an old politician, Boris Johnson.
Vogons?
Yeah, there's that kind of like look. I think it just does something to the body, which is why the Americans all have, you know, Mar-a-Lago face. They're all just trying to fight this.
Yeah.
I think it does something. Also, nothing wrong with being bald. Just gonna premise this sentence with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with being bald.
Can I just put this out there? Actually, I've got stronger feelings. I've got strong feelings about this, Jordan. So I don't know if anybody has seen Taron Egerton lately. Anybody seen him? Yeah. He, for those who don't know, he was in the Kingsman movies, Eddie the Eagle. He's been in a bunch of good stuff.
Elton John, he did that one.
He played Elton John, yeah. And he recently, I think he's kind of admitted defeat and he's just shaved it off. And the guy looks incredible. The guy has had a real glow up because of it. So, you know, to all the, you know, anybody who's kind of thinking of, you know, looking for, if you're thinking, hey, it doesn't look good, look at Taron Egerton. You know what I mean?
Bald is better than bad.
Yeah.
That's true.
I reckon.
Yeah.
In saying this, I just want to point out that little segment from Spiderhoof has shown me that Muldoon had hair, and I didn't know that. You look at those two photos, I thought Muldoon was bald.
He had a little island. Yeah.
He had stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yep. Very strange, man.
We call that the Stewart Island hairline. You know?
they were fantastic questions, Spiderhoof. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much.
So for anybody who just listened to this, Spiderhoof's message here is the bit that you can't read says, so that is one of the many reasons Luxon is a worse prime minister than Muldoon.
He actually is, and it makes me wish that he drunk more, because Muldoon had a bit of a he slowed down, you know.
The Schnapp election.
Oh yeah. Because how long was Muldoon in? It wasn't a full term.
9 years.
75 to 84.
Oh my god.
9 years. He was there for ages.
They used to have this thing where he would drive himself. It was before the days of parliamentary limos. And he's one of the reasons why we have parliamentary limos, because it would be a really bad look for the prime minister to be arrested drunk driving.
I think bring it back. Let them drive.
His whips used to go and put the tires down. Like they would flatten his tires in the parking station at the Beehive.
They did that the night of the Schnapp election.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful interview with I've totally forgotten her name. This is terrible, but with the woman who convinced him to do the Schnapp election.
Marilyn
Wearing.
There's a great YouTube interview with her, and
she's
a bit
brilliant.
of a hero, really.
Yeah. She actually, she kind of changed my brain chemistry in terms of like how an economy runs, because she ended up becoming an economist later on in life. She wrote a book, and a great quote. She said, "Anybody can, like, we always talk about jobs, and it's like, listen, we could create hundreds of thousands of jobs tomorrow. Let's just blow up the Harbour Bridge and employ a whole bunch of people to rebuild it." And she's like, you can't just create jobs. You actually need to kind of consider social costs. And I can't help but think of this government when I see them kind of putting so much money into archaic forms of energy rather than into sustainable industries that would create those jobs that actually do have a social benefit. There is no social benefit to an LNG terminal in 2026. Yeah. I don't know what she was doing in National, man. She was in the wrong party.
National was really different back
Well,
then.
she was doing us a solid by getting a snap election.
Yeah, but also they were able to, because it was a two-party system, because it was first past the post, there was a lot more crossing the floor and standing up for what you believed in. And when she started, she was the only woman in cabinet when she first began. And, you know, in that cabinet in the 70s with Muldoon, like that would have been just an absolute nightmare. And she held her own. She was.
Also, am I confusing her with somebody else? Is she not also Rainbow Community?
Marilyn Waring.
Marilyn Waring.
I am confused with someone else. Let's not just assume things. I just thought that was what I read as well. But we should definitely. She has the book as well. I'm pretty sure.
No, she is. She is. Actually, when I think about it, she is. Yeah.
Legend.
What a time. Legend.
Yeah, man, she's goated.
Yeah. Right. Before we sign off, I'm just going to give everyone a quick reminder about these. The tickets are available now. I'll see what the note is that Peter sent me. Tickets are available now at bhn.nz if people want to get in early. So you can do that super easy. So there's the health debate down in Dunedin and the Te Tiriti debate here up in Tamaki. Is there, a quick question about the debates for you guys, is there one thing that you really want to hear from these politicians?
Yeah, there's a lot I want to hear.
Give me a sec.
I just want to let people know as well that you can ask questions at these debates. That's what I'm going to be there for. I'm going to gather your questions and then, don't know how yet, but I will be doing that. So you can ask questions.
Yeah, sort them out so you don't have a million people asking the same question and you don't have people loading it. Like you don't have the supporters of the politicians showing up and just asking questions like, why are you so great? Which is a horrible way to run these things. So it's good to have a moderator there for that.
It'll be that kid in the cowboy hat. What I would like to hear is some solid plans for the cost of living, and for those already in government, if they could assemble how they think they've tackled the cost of living, because it is kind of mind-boggling to me how little they've addressed it and compared to how much they talked about it in their election time. And I just think we're seeing some actual policies come in now from opposition parties that actually address the cost of living, which is everything that the current government have been talking about, and all they can do is attack them because they have nothing themselves. And actually, I think that's also why we're also seeing the current government trying to campaign on things that have cross-party support. It's the closest they can get to actually addressing something that people care about.
I think I've got a pretty good question for David Seymour, but I'm almost kind of apprehensive about kind of throwing it out there, because in case somebody's watching it to see if they can get a hint about what questions to ask. I think I've got a pretty good one. And it does, to give a hint, it kind of revolves around the premise of equity. Nice.
Well, David agreeing to this, I'll just point out, means that he has a social media plan for this. So that's what I want people to really think about when we're watching this, is that he will have lines and gotcha moments. He will also have traps. This is what I also want the rest of the MPs to also think about. He will have things that he knows fairly predictable MPs will fall for, and he will exploit that for social media and put that out on his own channels without any context. I will also point out that 3 people from his debate have featured at the Oxford University debates. David is the only one who has lost. So Martima won her debate. Willie Jackson won his debate. David lost. So let's
also love how much Māori is on that poster.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It is very good. So tickets are available now for both of those at bhn.nz if people want to get in early. It'd be great to see you guys there. Bree and I will be at some of these. So, come and join us. Ask us questions. Bring the merch.
Come get
maybe not-
autographs.
selfies and all the rest of it. It'll be great fun. One more thing as well before we sign off, because I haven't spoken to you guys about when we do this next. August 6th is our cutoff date for people who are debating whether or not to join the Māori role or to stay on the general role. Where can people, does anybody know where you can find more information about this? Because I realize it is a very deeply personal choice for people. More than half of the people who are eligible to be on the Māori role are on the Māori role. Do you have any feelings either way about which is the best choice for people?
I'm currently doing like a little bit of reading into it because I had a lady message me and say to look into the different cabinet decisions and why, because there was like sort of an argument about, well, not an argument, but a discussion about whether it was going to push back Māori representation. So I'm just not going to pretend I'm educated enough on it. I need to keep looking into it really before I have an opinion. Yeah. It seems weird that they have to do it so early.
Yeah, it
So
does
there's a
seem
couple
weird.
It's a technical thing from what I understand. It is because the general role is the standard, this is where everybody starts, and then we put you onto a different role or bring you back down. So the admin of doing that for thousands of people just before an election means that you would run the risk of those people not being able to have a say in the area that they want to have a say. So it's more of a technical thing. It does suck because I'm sure that there are going to be people right up until election day going, oh, I wish I was on the other role. But yeah, from a purely technical point of view, that's why they do this. But also, I should point out, ACT and National have both in the past argued that the reason it has to be done so far in advance is because it stops Māori from voting strategically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with that note, now's a really good time for us to sign off.
Yeah.
That positive note. Yay.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I have put a book recommendation in the comment section there. It's a book called Hyperpolitics by Anton Jaeger. I haven't finished it yet, but I highly recommend it. It is something that has been quite inspiring, I think. It is a heavy read. It is very academic, but it kind of gives... it has given me some positive light for the future in terms of how we on the left can maximize our effect and how we can navigate forward in a world that seems to be overwhelmingly right-wing in the media anyway.
Perfect. All right. Well, that's it for me.
All right. Yeah.
Peace
Sweet.
out.
See you later, guys.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.